the Twitter killer who was convicted of murdering and dismembering 9 people, mostly women, after contacting them on Twitter in 2017. This is the first use of capital punishment in the country in nearly 3 years. Detailing the modus operandi of Shiraishi, investigators said he approached the victims via Twitter, offered to assist them with their suicidal wishes. He killed the 8 women, including teenagers, after raping them. Also killed the boyfriend of one of the women to silence him. Shiraishi was hanged at the Tokyo detention house in high secrecy, with nothing disclosed until the execution was carried out. His execution comes as calls grow to abolish capital punishment in Japan. Guatemala and the United States signed a joint security partnership agreement aimed at strengthening capabilities against transnational threats. U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Christine Noem and Guatemalan Minister of Governance Francisco Jimenez announced the cooperation deal, which focuses on combating illicit trafficking networks and enhancing operational and logistical capabilities between both countries. The agreement includes several key components, that is, enhanced operational and logistical collaboration to combat illicit trafficking, implementation of anti-narcotics border patrols, and the reactivation of joint Army National Civil Police patrols. Particularly in border area, it was the last stop in Noem's Central American tour, following visits to Costa Rica and Honduras on Wednesday. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met his Chinese counterpart Dong Jun on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Qingdao, China, seeking a permanent solution to the border dispute between the two nations. The defence ministers were, however, unable to adopt a joint statement at the end of their talks due to a lack of consensus on referring to terrorism. The China-led regional body was founded in 2001 and has China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Iran and Central Asian members as nations. In a troubling incident in India, 5 tigers, a mother and its cub were found dead in a wildlife sanctuary in a single day. The deaths were reported in the Chamarajanagar district in Karnataka. It triggered an outcry among conservatives and wildlife enthusiasts. Preliminary suspicion points to poisoning as the cause of death. According to forest officials, the tiger carcasses were discovered on Wednesday evening during a routine patrol by the forest staff. State Forest Minister announced the formation of high-level investigation team to probe the deaths. The minister has directed the committee to submit a detailed report soon. He also instructed that criminal cases be registered against those found responsible. The Diocese of Arlington, Virginia recently celebrated the ordination of 12 new priests, marking the second largest class in its 50-year history. And newly ordained priests who come from diverse backgrounds, including law, counseling and engineering, were called to the priesthood after discerning their vocation. They enter the priesthood at a time just as the first American Pope begins his papacy. At the same time, there remains a shortage of clergy like them in US, a number that has been declining since the 70s. Hundreds gathered to witness the ordination mass at the Cathedral of St. Thomas.
Excellent.
Mr. Michael C. Sampson.
Present.
The dollar drifted lower, hovering near its lowest level in 3.5 years against the euro and the sterling. Traders are wagering on deeper US rate cuts while awaiting trade deals ahead of a July deadline for President Donald Trump's tariffs. With the geopolitical tremors of the Iran-Israel conflict in the rearview, market focus this week has been on US monetary policy. Trump has repeatedly attacked Powell and called for rate cuts this year, stoking investor worries about the slow erosion of US central bank's independence and credibility. Investor attention will also be on progress on trade deals ahead of the July 9 deadline for Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Emerging market currencies also got a lift from the beaten-down dollar, the Taiwan dollar surging to its strongest level since April 2022. Oil is set to fall this week with the Iran-Israel ceasefire holding and easing concerns over West Asian supply risks. However, Brent crude futures rose 0.5% in early trade to settle above $68 a barrel, while US oil trades above $65 a barrel. Both benchmarks are on track for a 12% loss this week. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 climbed 1.38% to a 6-month high and crossed the 40,000 mark for the first time since the 7th of Jan, while the broader Topix index advanced 1.22%. The country's capital city saw core consumer price index excluding fresh food and fuel rise 3.1% year-on-year in June. That's lower than the 3.6% increase seen in the previous month and the 3.3% gain penciled by economists polled by Reuters. Other Asian markets also rose after White House spokesperson Kailash downplayed the impending start of the tariff deals, which have weighed on investor sentiment. July 8th is when the so-called Liberation Day tariffs are set to take effect after a 90-day pause, and July 9th is the deadline for an EU deal to avoid 50% tariffs. Indian markets are holding strong with benchmark indices hovering near all-time highs, reflecting growing investor confidence in the country's economic trajectory. The robust corporate earnings, resilient domestic consumption and steady inflows from the foreign institutional investors have fueled the rally despite global headwinds. India's macroeconomic fundamentals, stable inflation, strong GDP growth and government-driven infrastructure spending continue to offer a compelling growth story. The equity market's resilience amid geopolitical tensions and interest rate concerns is drawing both domestic and global attention, positioning India as one of the most attractive emerging market destinations in 2025. Gold fell this morning and is heading for a second weekly loss as the Israel-Iran truce weighed on prices. Markets are now eyeing US inflation data for clues on the Federal Reserve's interest rate trajectory. But experts say this week's dip is due to the Israel-Iran peace deal. Some analysts are also forecasting that prices will consolidate with a slight downward bias and are likely to stay around current levels. Spot silver was trading lower at $36.63 per ounce today, while platinum fell 1.8% after hitting its highest level in nearly 11 years. Palladium bucked the trend to gain 1.4% and hit its highest level since October 2024. Manchester City have shown their title credentials at the FIFA Club World Cup. The English side breezed past Juventus 5-2 to register their third straight win. City took the lead through Jeremy Doku to end for Kenyans to equalize the Juventus moments later. City regained their lead in the 26th minute. Erling Haaland then scored twice to put the match beyond the Italian side. Savinio rubbed the salt in Juventus' wounds with the fifth goal. Dusan Vlahovic scored a late consolation goal. The result did not matter in terms of qualification as both teams are already through to the knockouts. Cristiano Ronaldo's chapter with Al Nassr is far from over. The five-time Ballon d'Or winner has signed a 2-year contract extension with the Saudi Pro League side. There had been speculation over the 40-year-old's future after he posted on X, "This chapter is over." Just hours after the Saudi Pro League season ended, Al Nassr finished third and trophyless once again. Ronaldo's contract was set to expire at the end of June, and reports claim that a few clubs from the ongoing FIFA Club World Cup had expressed interest, but in the end, Ronaldo and Al Nassr returned to the negotiating table. Top seed Jessica Pegula is through to the semis after a hard-fought win over fellow American Emma Navarro. Pegula took 2 hours to seal a 6-4, 1-6, 6-3 victory. This is her first semi-final since winning in Charleston back in April. The match was rain-interrupted, but Pegula helped her nerve to stay on course for another grass court title. She'll now face Linda Noskova next.
Jessica Pegula.
Hollywood icon Brad Pitt's sprawling Los Feliz estate was reportedly burglarized earlier this week, according to law enforcement sources. The incident, which sent ripples through the celebrity-dense neighborhood, is now under active investigation as the LA Police Department. This recent event comes just weeks after a separate security breach at Jennifer Aniston's residence, where a stalker reportedly crashed her property, further raising concerns among Hollywood's elite. Sources close to the ongoing inquiry into the Pitt burglary confirmed the break-in occurred late Tuesday night. Media reports on the 26th of June indicate that actor and singer Katy Perry and actor Orlando Bloom have reportedly split. The couple, who were engaged since February 2019, have a 4-year-old daughter, Daisy. Perry is currently on her Lifetimes tour in Australia. Bloom is in Venice. They were last seen together in March at the post-Oscars Vanity Fair party. Both have been married previously. Both their representatives have remained silent about their alleged split. Yatra Films released the characters' posters of their film War 2. The studio announced its highly anticipated action film will enjoy a global release on the 14th of August. Alongside its domestic release in India, the new posters feature Hrithik Roshan, Junior NTR and Kiara Advani. War 2 is part of IRF's spy universe. The movie marks the latest explosive chapter in this universe, following global hits like Pathan, Tiger 3 and Original War. Another dose of the delightfully bizarre as focus features unleash the...
It all starts with something magnificent.
A stunning chapter in Renaissance art has been rediscovered in the Vatican after a decade-long restoration project. 2 lost Raphael masterpieces painted directly in oil on the walls of the Hall of the Constantine have emerged. We're going to leave you with this one. Thank you so much for joining us on WION The World is One. dive into your daily dose of news.
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over last 5-6 years JB is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over last 5-6 years JB is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One with me, Diksha Bisla. Let's start this bulletin by quickly taking a look at the headlines. Beijing confirms details of a trade deal reached with the United States, says the US has agreed to cancel a series of restrictive measures in return for supply of rare earths. Hopes raises of trade deals with other countries avoiding disruptions in the global economy. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh briefs his Chinese counterpart on Operation Sindoor and India's right to defence after the Pahalgam terror attack. Now, the meeting on the sidelines of the SCO underlines India's concerns over China's support to Pakistan during the May conflict. EU leaders met in Brussels to debate a US trade deal ahead of a looming July 9th tariff deadline. Germany and France remain divided on strategy as Brussels wants all options remain on the table if talks fail. Shiv Sena party in India confirms that cousin brothers and arch rivals Uddhav and Raj Thackeray will join hands in march against imposition of Hindi in schools in Maharashtra. A poster of the two together earlier this month had raised quite a stir. Panic ensues as two elephants run amok during the Jagannath Rath Yatra in Ahmedabad. Both have now been brought under control. No casualties have been reported. Thousand-strong Puri in India's Odisha state for the annual Jagannath Rath Yatra. The idol of the deity has made its first appearance. Nearly 10,000 paramilitary security personnel are on alert to prevent any untoward incident. Real Madrid beat Salzburg 3-0 to top their group in the FIFA Club World Cup. The Spanish Giants will face Juventus in the round of 16. Tokyo's core inflation eased to 3.1% in June, but stayed well above the Bank of Japan's 2% target, as rising food and services prices keep rate hike expectations alive ahead of the BOJ's July policy meeting. In a major breakthrough with global trade implications, China today confirmed the finalization of a highly anticipated trade deal with the United States. The agreement follows 2 days of high-level negotiations in London this month and marks a significant step forward in easing escalating economic tensions between the world's two largest economies. Now, according to a statement released by China's Ministry of Commerce, China will review and approve export applications for controlled items in line with laws and regulations, while the US side will correspondingly lift a series of restrictive measures against China. The deal is significant as it is expected to reshape the global trade flows, particularly in strategic sectors like semiconductors, electric vehicles, and defense technologies, which heavily rely on critical minerals. Now, rare earth export has been one of the key sticking points in negotiations, with China holding a near monopoly on global refining capacity. The breakthrough paves the way for resumed shipment of these vital material to the United States. The agreement also implements what officials refer to as the Geneva Consensus and signals a broader willingness to both sides to ease tensions and re-engage economically. Well, the timing is very crucial here, with the July 9 deadline looming for countries to renegotiate tariff terms before higher US duties kick in. Now, while the announcement reflects progress, several key details are still to be made public. Now, this is a developing story and more details are expected in the coming hours as both Washington and Beijing outline the full scope of the deal and its implementation roadmap. Now, there's been much discussion about the damages to Iranian nuclear program during the recent war, but Israel's offensive also targeted Tehran's ballistic missile program. Well, the Israel Defense Forces identified that Iran has had as many as 2,500 ballistic missiles in its arsenal before the IDF launched what it dubbed as a preemptive operation on June 13th. Now, as per the reports, IDF's intelligence directorate has also identified that Iran planned to triple the rate of its ballistic missile production. The IDF predicted that Iran was building a new facility for mass-producing ballistic missiles, which would increase its stockpile to 8,800 within 2 years and to 10,000 missiles sometime in 2028. Now, this is a big number, but it is lesser than what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed on Wednesday. He had said that Iran could have reached 20,000 ballistic missiles if Israel had not attacked it now. Well, as per reports, the IDF had determined if Iran were to have close to 9,000 ballistic missiles, this would pose an existential threat to Israel. The report also cited top IDF sources that said that Tehran had about 400 ballistic missile launchers, but about half of those were destroyed during the 12-day war. Now, this is being touted as the reason behind the drop in the volume of Iran's average missile salvos by the end of the war. Israel has estimated the cost of damages incurred during its 12-day war with Iran at nearly $3 billion. Now, these funds will be needed both to repair missile-hit buildings and pay compensation to local businesses. As per a Bloomberg report, calculations by the Israeli Finance Ministry and tax body indicate the extent to which Iran broke through Israel's defenses during nearly the 2 weeks of rocket fire. All right, and moving on, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that the US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites left extensive and serious damage. Well, this as the Trump administration expanded its efforts to assert the effectiveness of the strikes. The latest was a classified briefing on US strikes on Iran for all 100 members of the US Senate. CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane briefed the members of the Senate.
Without any classified information whatsoever, I think it's safe to say that we have struck a major blow alongside our friends in Israel against Iran's nuclear program that is going to make America safer, our friends in the region safer, and protect the world from the risk of an Iranian nuclear weapon for years.
Democratic senators also admitted that there was damage to Iran's nuclear sites, but said that it was too early to tell the extent.
You'll see inside.
My personal view, based on what I heard, is Iran continues to be a threat. A nuclear-armed Iran is a threat to the entire world, an unacceptable threat. And right now, we have no final battle damage assessment that would enable us to be comfortable or complacent about what has been done.
Now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has said that Iran had never been this weak, though he warned that the missile was not the final chapter. Graham, however, also said that he did not know where the 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium existed, but it wasn't part of the target set. But this comes as reports emerged that highly enriched uranium stockpile at Fordo and Isfahan could have been sealed off from the outside world due to the bombing of the nuclear facilities. The report, citing 3 senior Israeli officials, said that Israel believes it would detect any Iranian attempt to recover the stockpile. White House also claimed that there is no indication that any enriched uranium was removed from any of the 3 sites in Iran that were targeted in the U.S. strikes.
We were watching closely, and there was no indication to the United States that any of that enriched uranium was moved prior to the strike.
Earlier at a press briefing in the Pentagon, Hegseth had termed the U.S. strikes in Iran a resounding success that ended the war and set back Iran's nuclear program by years. Hegseth had lashed out at leaked intel reports as well.
President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history. And it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. There's been a lot of discussion about what happened and what didn't happen. Step back for a second. Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war.
Now, Hegseth cited the new report by the CIA on the strikes causing intense damage, as well as similar findings of the IAEA. Now, these 2 assessments contradict the intel leaks that suggest that the damage caused could be covered in months.
You'll see inside the mission space.
Less than a year after the UK national elections and a historic 172-seat majority for Keir Starmer's Labour Party, a new YouGov MRP poll suggests a dramatic shift in the electoral dynamics. Now, Nigel Farage's Reform UK party has made big inroads. YouGov's first national poll since the 2024 election shows a hung parliament, with Reform UK emerging as the largest party and the Conservatives push into the 4th place. The estimated seat projections are based on model responses from 11,500 voters in the United Kingdom. The poll suggests that if a general election were held tomorrow, Reform UK could emerge as the largest party in Parliament with 271 seats. However, the party would fall short of an outright majority, missing the 326-seat threshold needed to form a majority government. Now, the poll shows a major collapse for the Labour Party, which is set to plunge from 403 seats to just 178. The Conservatives face an even worse fate. The poll suggests dropping to just 46 seats, which is a potential low point in modern party history. Now, the Liberal Democrats are projected to rise to 81 seats, positioning them as a key parliamentary player. In the poll, if the poll holds true, it would mark a dramatic surge from the 5 seats the Reform Party currently holds. Nigel Farage could be forced to govern as a minority or seek informal alliances to pass legislation. Now, high-profile names at risk of losing their seats include Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper, Bridget Phillipson, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, John Healey and Pat McFadden. While the YouGov MRP model suggests no realistic 2-party government or coalition would reach the 326 seats required for a mathematical House of Commons majority. Now, this represents a volatile, uncertain and chaotic electoral landscape.
People who wish to leave now, please do so.
And in its first execution since 2022, Japan has executed a man dubbed the Twitter Killer, who was convicted of murdering and dismembering 9 people, mostly women, after contacting them on social media in 2017. Well, Takahiro Shiraishi was sentenced to death in 2020 for the killings of 9 victims, most of whom had posted suicidal thoughts on social media. He was also convicted of sexually abusing female victims. Shiraishi was hanged at the Tokyo detention house in high secrecy with nothing disclosed until the execution was done. In 2017, police arrested Shiraishi after finding the bodies of 8 females and 1 male in cold storage cases in his apartment. Now, detailing the modus operandi of Shiraishi's, investigators said he approached the victims via Twitter and offered to assist them with their suicidal wishes. He killed the 8 women, including teenagers, after raping them, and also killed a boyfriend of one of the women to silence him.
This case caused great shock and discomfort to the public, with the loss of 9 victims and precious human lives in a span of 2 months for the extremely selfish reasons of satisfying his own sexual and financial desires.
The execution was carried out as calls grow to abolish capital punishment in Japan. Japan's suicide rate ranks among the highest in the world. Following a recent decline, the number has climbed back this year as people were hit by the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. While Japan's crime rate is relatively low, the country has seen some high-profile mass killings in recent years. After arriving at the International Space Station, Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla, who was part of the Axiom Space's AX-4 mission, thanked the crew for the warm welcome, adding that he was confident of carrying out scientific experiments and research for the next 2 weeks on board the orbiting lab. Well, Shukla is accompanied by fellow crew members Peggy Whitson from the US, who is commanding the mission specialist Salvos Uznansky-Wisniewski, a radiation expert from Poland, and mission specialist Tibor Kapu, a mechanical engineer from Hungary. Now, speaking in both English and their native languages, the new arrivals shared hugs and handshakes with the space station's 7 full-time residents, celebrating with drink pouches sipped through straws.
It has been a wonderful ride. It has been great, and I was looking forward to come to space. You know, it is something to look forward to as such. But the minute I entered the International Space Station and you guys, this crew, you just made me feel so welcome, as if you literally opened your doors, like your house doors for us. That's true. So, but it was fantastic. I feel even better. You know, whatever expectation I had of, coming here, they were surpassed by the view, of course. That's the big part of it, but by you guys as well. So thank you so much. I think this was fantastic. This is wonderful, and I'm very, very confident that the next 14 days are going to be amazing. Doing, as you said, advancing science and research and working together. Thank you so much.
Sharing their excitement on becoming the first astronauts from their countries, the astronauts from Hungary and Poland said space is expanding towards a new era. Mission Commander Peggy Whitson said that she was eager to train the young rookies and remembered her first experience when starting out.
Peggy Whitson in her return into the orbiting laboratory.
The best part about being a commander on a mission with all rookies is you get to watch the rookies go through it for the first time, and it helps you remember some of the things you went through the first time, but it also, it's just very special to get to relive the experience again through these guys.
The crew were welcomed by Space Station Commander Takuya Onishi, who said that he was happy to see their smiling faces and stressed on diversity in space.
With your arrival, right now, there are 11 astronauts from 6 countries, and all of us are here in order to advance human space exploration and scientific research, symbolizing international cooperation.
The 4 astronauts went into quarantine on May 25th to stay healthy, facing delays due to space station leak monitoring. NASA prioritized safety following repairs to a long-time leak on the Russian side of the outpost. Now, this mission marks Axiom's 4th flight to the ISS since 2022. The company is developing its own space station, part of the private ventures NASA is encouraging to replace the ISS by 2030.
Commander Peggy Whitson in her return to the orbiting laboratory, her 5th flight.
The Kailash Mansarovar Yatra is resuming after a gap of 5 years. Now, it was halted first due to the COVID-19 pandemic and then due to the Galwan conflict and the tensions at the line of actual control between India and China. Well, WION is bringing you continuous coverage from Kailash Mansarovar. Take a look.
This is one of the holiest places, not just in Hinduism,
but in many religions, this is the center of the world in many religions. And behind me, you can see the holy Mount Kailash as well. Now, this entire area is also very holy. In fact, it is part of the pilgrimage, the Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage, and also origin of 4 great rivers, including Brahmaputra, Indus, and Satluj. Now, we know that when it comes to Hinduism, a lot of people come here, pray as well. In fact, there's another lake as well. It's called the Rakshas Tal. It was created by Ravan according to Hindu mythology, and these lakes are just nearby. This is a freshwater lake. In fact, this is a freshwater lake at the highest level on the planet, and the Rakshas Tal is a saltwater lake. No life is present there according to local traditions. It is believed to be the ghost lake. In fact, sometimes it disappears as well according to legends. And this is the lake that gives nourishment to the life on the planet, life, of course, in Asia. But essentially, we know that many Indian pilgrims who are part of the first batch and of course later batches as well will be coming here as well and taking the holy water as well with them back home in India. Sudhan Sibal for WION at the Mansarovar Lake.
Cristiano Ronaldo's chapter with Al Nassr is far from over. The 5-time Ballon d'Or winner has signed a 2-year contract extension with the Saudi Pro League side. Now, Ronaldo's Al Nassr deal had been due to expire at the end of June, and there were speculations that he could leave after he posted on X that this chapter is over. But that has now been quashed. In a post on X, Ronaldo wrote, "A new chapter begins, same passion, same dream. Let's make history together." Ronaldo has been handed a lucrative contract by Al Nassr, and as per the Sun, the Portuguese forward will receive a signing-on fee of £24.5 million or $33.7 million, which will rise to $52.3 million if he enters the second year of the deal. He will earn a base salary of $245 million per year, which is equivalent to $620,000 per day. Now, the total value of the contract is £492 million or $677 million. Now, it has had the potential to exceed $688 million through performance bonuses. Now, these include $5.5 million for winning the Golden Boot and $11 million if Al Nassr win the league title. Additional perks include $5.5 million for the use of a private jet and $82.5 million worth of promised sponsorship deals with Saudi companies and emerging brands in the Asian market. Al Nassr has reportedly granted Ronaldo a 15% ownership stake in the club, valued at £33 million or $45 million. He's also expected to take on as a club ambassador role in the coming weeks. He may not have won a trophy in Saudi Arabia yet, but his individual numbers remain staggering. 99 goals in 111 games since joining in 2023, including back-to-back Golden Boots in the Saudi Pro League. Now, the new deal means that Ronaldo remains central to Al Nassr's plans as they enter a new era after parting ways with coach Stefano Pioli. All right, and moving on, India's Met Department has issued an orange alert for heavy to very heavy rain for parts of Himachal Pradesh after the state reported 3 cloudbursts, 9 flash floods and 3 landslides that resulted in 5 fatalities and 1 injury. On Thursday, Chief Minister Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu directed all the deputy commissioners in the state to stay alert and ensure 24/7 accessibility to the public. Officials have also been instructed to relocate people living near rivers. Additionally, locals and tourists have been warned against venturing near rivers during the rainy season. Now, in Gujarat, an orange alert has also been sounded in Surat, Navsari, Valsad and Rajkot, among other places. These places are expected to witness heavy to very heavy rainfall. The IMD has also predicted light thunderstorms with lightning and surface winds of 30 to 40 kilometers per hour in other regions like Ahmedabad, Vadodara and Gandhinagar. In Kerala, orange alerts have been issued for Ernakulam, Idukki, Thrissur, Wayanad and Malappuram. Considering the weather conditions, the state government has declared school holiday in several districts. Additionally, mining activity has been banned until the 30th of June. Now, according to the Met Department, the national capital is expected to experience rain in the next 3 to 4 days. The maximum temperature is expected to drop to 33 to 35 degrees Celsius, while the minimum temperature would be around 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. The IMD said that the southwest monsoon has advanced over parts of Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab, and the southwest monsoon will advance over the remaining parts of the country in the coming days. An American fashion designer, Vera Wang, has addressed royalty and runways. From figure skater to fashion's reigning queen of bridal, her story is one of vision and reinvention. Now, as the style icon celebrates her 76th birthday, let's trace her journey. Born on June 27, 1949 in New York City, Wang started her career far from fashion on the ice. Now, a former competitive figure skater, she switched lanes to enter the world of fashion, working at a fashion media outlet at the age of 23. Her breakthrough came in the year 1990 when she opened her first bridal boutique in New York City. Now, what started as a quest to create her own wedding dress bloomed into an empire that redefined bridal wear. Moving away from the traditional designs to sleek, modern and often edgy gowns. Now, from Celine Dion to Kim Kardashian, her client list includes most of the major A-listers. But Wang didn't stop at bridal. Her brands now span evening wear, perfumes, shoes, homeware and ready-to-wear collections. She has collaborated with retail giants like Kohl's and David's Bridal, bringing high-end style to the masses. In 2013, the 76-year-old was awarded the CFDA Lifetime Achievement Award. And in 2022, she received the National Medal of Arts. Now, this was a testament to her influence beyond the runway. She remains a beacon for Asian American representation and women entrepreneurs worldwide. Today, Wang isn't slowing down. She is still designing, still expanding, and still turning heads. That is time for us to take a very short break. Don't go anywhere. More news and updates will follow on the other side. You're watching Beyond World is One. Stay tuned.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over last 5-6 years, Jaibi, is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One with me, Diksha Bisla, and with me is my colleague, Ms. Rajni Kalra. Let's begin this bulletin by quickly taking a look at the headlines. Beijing confirms details of a trade deal reached with the United States. Says the US has agreed to cancel a series of restrictive measures in return for supply of rare earths. Hopes raised of trade deals with other countries, avoiding disruptions in the global economy. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh briefs his Chinese counterpart on Operation Sindoor and India's right to defend after the Pahalgam terror attack. The meeting on the sidelines of the SCO underlines India's concerns over China's support to Pakistan during the May conflict. Israeli court rejects Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's request for a 2-week break in his graft trial. Says there's no basis or reason cited in Netanyahu's plea to justify cancelling hearing of evidence in the case. Tokyo's core inflation eased to 3.1% in June, but stayed well above the Bank of Japan's 2% target. As rising food and service prices keep rate hike expectations alive ahead of the BOJ's July policy meeting. Minority groups in Bangladesh's Shahbag form a human chain to protest against demolition of a Durga temple. Thousands-strong Puri in India's Odisha state for the annual Jagannath Rath Yatra. The idol of the deity has made its first appearance. Nearly 10,000 paramilitary security personnel are on high alert to prevent any untoward incident. Search and rescue operations continue on the Alaknanda River in India's Uttarakhand for a second day to find 8 people still missing after the Rudraprayag bus incident. 4 people are confirmed to be killed in the accident on Thursday morning. Real Madrid beat Salzburg 3-0 to top their group in the FIFA Club World Cup. The Spanish Giants will face Juventus in the round of 16. The White House has said that Operation Midnight Hammer, a targeted military strike by the United States against Iranian nuclear sites, is expected to bring about lasting peace and stability in the West Asia region. Now, the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, took a dig at the past presidencies, emphasizing that Iran was weeks away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon.
Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. The United States and the entire world are safer because of this president's decisiveness.
According to a CNN report, the Trump administration is considering a proposal to ease sanctions on Iran, potentially allowing the country to access up to $30 billion to develop a civilian nuclear program, and releasing billions of dollars in frozen funds in a bid to revive nuclear talks. Well, the report, citing 4 sources, said that behind-the-scenes talks have been ongoing between Iranian officials and key US and West Asian players, despite recent military escalations between Iran and Israel. Now, these diplomatic efforts continued even after a ceasefire agreement was reached this week. However, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said in an interview on state television that Tehran currently has no plan to meet with the United States, which is contradicting US President Donald Trump's statement that Washington planned to have talks with Iran next week.
No agreement has been made to resume negotiations now. I am stating clearly that no agreement has been made, no promise has been made, nor have we talked at all about restarting negotiations. But the fact that we are examining among ourselves what is in the interest of the Iranian people is another discussion. So far, there has been no agreement, no subject for negotiation.
Well, that's not all. The Iranian foreign minister also said that a bill suspending cooperation with UN nuclear watchdog was now binding after being passed by lawmakers and approved by Iran's Guardian Council. However, the law will ultimately be decided upon by the Supreme National Security Council, technically led by the president, but ultimately accountable to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Furthermore, French President Emmanuel Macron said that US strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities were genuinely effective, but the worst-case scenario would be if Tehran now exits the Global Non-Proliferation Treaty. Meanwhile, Russia has accused the United States and Israel of being responsible for the colossal damage to the activities of the UN nuclear agency in Iran.
Israel that are responsible for the colossal damage to the activities of the IAEA. No matter how hard they try to blame Tehran for all the sins, we cannot allow the bombing of nuclear facilities to become literally commonplace.
And in other news, US President Donald Trump is reportedly pushing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to wrap up the 20-month conflict with Hamas in Gaza, following the success of the 12-day-long conflict between Iran and Israel. Now, according to Israeli media, Trump's demand to cancel Netanyahu's criminal trial is connected to a broader effort aimed at achieving multiple goals, including the end of war in Gaza, securing Israel's commitment to a future Palestinian state, and expansion of the Abraham Accords to include new countries. Now, a report by the Israel Hayom newspaper that claimed that Donald Trump raised the matter in a phone call with Netanyahu on Monday, while US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer both participated in the call. The newspaper, citing a source, reported that Trump and Netanyahu agreed to wrap up the war in Gaza with a proposed timeline of 2 weeks. Now, according to this plan, Israel would halt its military offensive in the Palestinian territory. Hamas would release the remaining hostages. The leadership of the Hamas militant group would be exiled, although Hamas has long rejected such demands. 4 Arab states, including the UAE and Egypt, would jointly govern the Gaza Strip, replacing Hamas. Well, the report also says that Trump and Netanyahu have agreed that Israel would express support for a future two-state solution. And following which, both Saudi Arabia and Syria would establish ties with Israel under the Abraham Accords, and other Arab and Muslim countries would follow suit. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that a victory over Iran could pave the way for new peace opportunities, which Israel must not waste.
We have fought with strength against Iran and achieved a great victory. That victory opens an opportunity for a dramatic expansion of the peace agreements. We are working vigorously on that. Along with the release of our hostages and the defeat of Hamas, there is a window of opportunity here that must not be wasted.
Now, his comment was an apparent reference to the Abraham Accords, overseen by Donald Trump in 2020 during his first term as US President, that so far has normalized its relations with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Morocco. Now, furthermore, French President Emmanuel Macron has said that Donald Trump is very determined to broker a new ceasefire in Gaza. Macron made this statement following a phone call with the US President. Meanwhile, thousands take to the streets of Israel's Tel Aviv to call for the end of the war in Gaza and the return of hostages. Police arrested 7 protesters who demanded an immediate prisoner exchange with Palestinian factions in Gaza to secure the release of hostages. Now, according to Hamas-run Health Ministry, Israeli strikes killed at least 28 people across the Gaza Strip. More than 20 killed people arrived at Shifa Hospital, while the bodies of 8 others were taken to Nasser Hospital in the south. So far, the war has killed over 56,000 Palestinians. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk has called for a ceasefire in Gaza, as well as the release of hostages and an all-out effort to get humanitarian assistance to Gaza. And as the war between Russia and Ukraine continues to rage on, the European Union has decided to extend sanctions on Russia for another 6 months at a summit in Brussels. Well, the sweeping sanctions by the bloc include freezing of Russian central bank assets worth $234 billion, which will remain in effect until early 2026.
At the same time, we are keeping up the pressure on Russia, and we have adopted 17 packages of sanctions. And the work to deliver a new one, powerful package, is well underway.
The European Union's decision comes as a contingency plan over rising fears that Hungary, which has been a strong supporter of Russia, might not support the decision of the bloc to renew the economic sanctions. Now, Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, took the decision to the 11th hour, when the sanctions came up for renewal in January this year. Now, refusal by Hungary could land a severe blow to the leverage the European Union holds over Russia. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called upon the European Union to support the sanctions. In a video address, Zelensky urged the EU leaders to adopt the sanctions targeting Russia's oil trade, shadow tanker fleet, banks and military supply chain. Now, in the midst of all this, Russia and Ukraine released soldiers as part of the latest prisoner of war swap that was agreed during peace talks in Istanbul earlier this month. Both countries, however, did not mention the number of prisoners exchanged in the latest swap. Following the release, Ukrainian soldiers draped in the country's national flag embraced their family, relatives and friends with tears of joy. According to Ukraine's coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war, a majority of the released soldiers were held captive for more than 3 years. On the other hand, Russia said that another group of its soldiers have returned and are undergoing psychological treatment in Belarus. The country's defense ministry posted a video of the released soldiers chanting "Russia, Russia, Russia." On the battlefront, the Ukrainian army claimed that it halted Russian advancement in the northeast border regions of Sumy. The country's army chief claimed that Russian offensive in Sumy have been choked off and the line of combat has been established. The army chief has also called for more fortifications in the region. The GHOST unit is a specialized drone contingent part of the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine's Defense Ministry. The drone unit is known for conducting targeted drone strikes against Russian military infrastructure in occupied territories such as Crimea. Owing to its covert nature, information about the unit's structure or personnel is very limited. However, the contingent's actions demonstrate a focus on high-impact and intelligence-driven operations. Though there is no information on the kind of drones used during the operation, visuals suggest that Kiev could have likely used the kamikaze drones to strike the Russian S-400 systems. Unlike other drones, kamikaze drones are suicide drones which self-destruct while coming in contact with its intended target. New York City's incumbent mayor, Eric Adams, has launched his re-election campaign. Now, Adams' renewed bid follows the surprise victory of progressive candidate Zoran Mamdani in the Democratic primary earlier this week. Well, Eric Adams' term has been marred by a corruption indictment and a controversial dismissal of police chief. He had decided to drop out of the Democratic primary, having won as a Democrat in his first mayoral bid in 2021. Adams saw his popularity plummet following his indictment on corruption charges and the subsequent decision by President Trump's Justice Department to drop the case. In April, he announced that he would run for re-election as an independent, avoiding the Democratic primary that included Mamdani and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Taking a shot at Zoran Mamdani, Adams called the Democratic nominee a child of privilege with no real political achievements or realistic policies. He called the election a choice between a candidate with a blue collar and one with a silver spoon.
This election is a real choice. This election is a choice between a candidate with a blue collar and one with a silver spoon. A choice between dirty fingernails and manicured nails. A choice between someone who delivered lower crime, the most jobs in history, and the most new housing built in decades, and an assembly member who did not pass a bill. None. It's a choice. Selection is a choice between real progress and empty promises.
Mamdani, considered a progressive upstart, declared a Democratic primary victory over former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary. Now, Mamdani's victory and potential win in the general election has prompted strong reactions from both sides of the political spectrum. Progressives have cheered his campaign's upbeat tone and focus on economic issues. However, critics have questioned his policies and leveled allegations of anti-Semitism and anti-capitalism against him. A Swiss breakthrough may soon change how we recycle our electronics. Researchers at ETH University have found a greener, cheaper way to recover rare earth metals from e-waste, boosting sustainable recycling and cutting mining dependence. While rare earth elements play a crucial role in modern electronics, powering everything from fluorescent lamps to magnets in hard drives to wind farm generators. Currently, less than 1% of rare earth materials are recycled, and that's because separating these elements requires an immense amount of energy and chemicals, making the process incredibly expensive. Well, that is what Swiss researchers are hoping to solve, to make rare earth e-waste recycle an affordable option.
So currently recycling rates are really low, so below 1% is the number that we usually give. I would say the main reason for that is that the demand from the mining industries is really controlled by a few countries, especially China, which controls over 90% of the refining of these elements, and so there's a bit of price dumping that goes hand in hand, and so without the proper regulations or the proper innovations to kind of like push the recycling of these elements, it's really hard to do so.
Researchers have developed a new method that allows for the efficient separation of rare earth elements through a simple process.
I mean, at the moment, we've only done it on lab scale, so like what you get in the end is like very small quantities of rare earth oxide. So this is why the scale up now is interesting, because if we produce enough material, then we have industrial partners who are going to use it in their processes. And I think this for me will really be the next milestone, is like when you see the recycled product being used in like a daily product.
The discovery comes as the European Union intensifies its push for more recycling, driven by environmental concerns and geopolitical pressures. Now, under the European Union's 2023 Critical Raw Material Act, the goal is to mine 10%, process 40%, and recycle 25% of their raw material needs by 2030. In Bolivia's city of Cochabamba, a new trend is taking root: cryptocurrency adoption. Well, this comes as the country faces growing economic distress. Central bank reserves have dwindled to some of their lowest levels in over a decade. Inflation has crossed 8%, and the Boliviano continues to weaken against the dollar. Now, in this climate of financial uncertainty, crypto is emerging as an alternative store of value and means of transaction. On the streets of Bolivia, crypto ATMs are popping up, and businesses from restaurants to retail are starting to accept Bitcoin. Restaurant owners call it innovative, saying customers can now buy a chicken or save money using Bitcoin. Now, despite its novelty, it is gaining real-world traction.
We're offering a promotion pack that includes 3 tannings with a discount if you pay in Bitcoin.
But not everyone is convinced. Economists warn that this isn't a sign of financial stability, but rather a reflection of declining household purchasing power.
What happens is that these kinds of processes that economies like ours tend to go through, where macroeconomic exchange rate and monetary deteriorations force people to look for alternatives, are an ideal breeding ground for the development of new technologies and their adoption. People seek to protect the value of their income, their savings, their assets. Cryptocurrencies allow you to achieve that. Transactionality is also important, insofar as the financial system is restricted by an official exchange rate that no longer reflects reality. So, these kinds of payment methods and technologies offer alternatives that, to some extent, respond more to reality than what the formal system does.
Experts caution against crypto-colonialism and the volatility of digital currencies. Yet, Bitcoin believers argue that despite short-term risks, crypto is a long-term store of value. For now, Bolivia stands at the crossroads of innovation and economic desperation. And Mussolini is back in Rome, but not the one that you're thinking about. Well, this time it's not about politics, it's about football. And yes, there's still a connection to Italy's infamous dictator. Meet Romano Floriani Mussolini, the great-grandson of Benito Mussolini, and a young defender determined to make his mark at Lazio. Now, back in the Eternal City, this Mussolini won't be making speeches. He's here to defend the right flank. The 22-year-old has returned to Lazio after a solid season with Juve Stabia in Italy's second division. Mussolini made 37 appearances and showed he's more than just a famous name. US Tabia wanted to keep him, but Lazio quickly triggered a buyback clause to bring him back. Once a Roma Academy player, he crossed the city to join his beloved Lazio. And after 2 loan spells, Mussolini could now be groomed as the future of Lazio's defense under Maurizio Sarri. Now, he already made headlines last year when he scored his first professional goal. But it wasn't just the goal. The celebration stirred controversy, echoing symbols from Italy's dark past. The 22-year-old has acknowledged his family history, but insists that he is not defined by his great-grandfather's political legacy. Romano Floriani's mother, Alessandra Mussolini, is a former Italian MP. She is the granddaughter of Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator who ruled Italy from 1922 to 1943. It's time for us to take a very short break, but coming up on the other side, we tell you more about a report that has sparked concerns in Washington, that Islamabad is developing a nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the United States. This comes days after US President Donald Trump hosted Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir for lunch at the White House.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata, we got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over the last 5-6 years is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Thanks for staying tuned to WION. I'm Samiksha Srivastava. US and China have inked the much talked about tariff deal. We'll get you the details in just a bit, starting first up with the headlines. Beijing confirms details of a trade deal reached with the United States, says the US has agreed to cancel a series of restrictive measures in return for supply of rare earths. Hopes raised of trade deals with other countries avoiding disruption in the global economy. Israel military releases video that it claims shows troops dismantling a tunnel in northern Gaza. The IDF says this tunnel was used by militants in 2014 to kill 4 Israeli soldiers. Israeli court rejects Prime Minister Netanyahu's request for a 2-week break in his draft trial, says there is no basis for reasons cited in Netanyahu's plea to justify cancelling hearing of evidence in the case. Thousand-strong Puri in India's Odisha state for the annual Jagannath Rath Yatra. The idol of the deity has made its first appearance. Nearly 10,000 paramilitary security personnel on alert to prevent any untoward incident. Search and rescue operations continue in the Alaknanda River in India's Uttarakhand for second consecutive day to find 8 people still feared missing after the Rudraprayag bus accident. 4 people are confirmed killed in the accident on Thursday morning. Hong Kong's equity markets surged in early 2025, led by strong investor interest in China and anticipation of Shein's IPO. Big name deals and A2H listing had fueled the best first half showing since 2021. Real Madrid defeats Salzburg 3-0 to top their group in FIFA Club World Cup. The Spanish Giants will now face Juventus in round of 16. And starting with our top focus this hour, days after US President Donald Trump hosted Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir for lunch at the White House, a report that has now sparked concerns in Washington that Pakistan is developing a nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the United States. In fact, the report published by Foreign Affairs magazine cites US intel sources suggesting that Pakistan's pursuit of long-range nuclear missiles could lead Washington to treat it as a nuclear adversary. The United States designates countries as nuclear adversaries based on their potential threat or opposition. In fact, currently Russia, China and North Korea are considered nuclear rivals. Due to their missile capabilities and nuclear arsenals, Pakistan might be added to this list, and if it successfully develops an ICBM capable of reaching the US mainland. According to Foreign Affairs report, even though Pakistan claims that its nuclear program is aimed at countering India's conventional military superiority, it could be designed to prevent potential US military action in the region, particularly intervening on behalf of New Delhi in future India-Pakistan conflict. Also note that it was just last year that the outgoing Biden administration had imposed sanctions on 4 Pakistan entities, including the state-owned National Development Complex, the NDC, for their alleged involvement in Pakistan's ballistic missile program. Also, an intercontinental ballistic missile is a long-range missile with a reach exceeding 5,500 kilometers. The missile is designed to deliver nuclear payloads. However, so far, Pakistan does not have any ICBMs in its arsenal. However, in 2022, Pakistan had tested a medium-range missile, the Shaheen-3, which has a range of over 2,700 kilometers. And joining us to discuss this further is Captain Alok Bansal. He is Director of India Foundation and Executive Director of South Asian Institute for Strategic Affairs. Appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. Captain, the timing of the report is extremely interesting. It comes days after US hosted Asim Munir. Of course, a known fact that Pakistan does not have any intercontinental ballistic missiles in its arsenal as of now. But if the report does hold true, Pakistan would be viewed as an adversary by the US. Your comments, your analysis of this?
See, Pakistan has for long been harping that it is the only Muslim country with the nuclear weapons. And in fact, after the recent Iran-Israel war and the way US intervened into Iran, a lot of Pak media and Pak social media is actually abuzz that that Pakistan as the only nuclear-powered Muslim country needs to do something, that this sort of a unilateral aggression against Muslim countries should be stopped. And Pakistan for long have harbored aspirations of being the sole superpower within the Islamic bloc. And to that extent, I think they have been trying to develop newer and newer arsenal, and ICBM could be an aspirational target for them. This does pose serious threat to United States, because we have seen in the past that not only Pak is afflicted by serious radical outfits, there have been radicals who have actually infiltrated the government, including the armed forces. And Pakistan's arsenal, be it nuclear weapons or missiles, will never be immune from interference from non-state actors. And this will pose threat not only to the United States, but to the globe at large. And this is important because at this point of time, there ceased to be a bonhomie between Pakistan and United States. Not only was Asim Munir hosted in the White House, Pakistan has actually proposed President Trump's name for a Nobel Peace Prize, and again, Yesterday, again, Shehbaz Sharif spoke to Rubio and thanked United States for everything and anything, bringing Iran-Israel conflict to a stop and all those things. So this growing bonhomie needs maybe an attempt to mask Pakistan's nefarious designs as far as building up of ICBM and nuclear power is concerned.
Yes, Captain Bansal, in light of US carrying out airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites, could it also be a message to the US from interfering in any South Asian conflict in the future?
Well, if Pakistan does have ICBM, US will think 10 times before actually doing some similar interference in Pakistan. And in any case, what North Korea has very clearly shown is that US is extremely averse to interfering in a country which possesses nuclear arms and the capacity to hit US mainland. So undoubtedly, once Pakistan successfully tests an ICBM, it will bring Pakistan into a different league, and US will be extremely careful before interfering with Pakistan.
Yes, also Dr. Bansal, that brings me to another question here. Do you think it is also an alarming situation for India given Operation Sindoor was of course successful, but is it a cause of concern Pakistan developing on ICBM?
See, for India, any missile of Pakistan is a cause of concern, because even a short-range missile can hit India. So from India's point of view, it doesn't really make a difference whether they have a missile which can go 5,000 kilometers or whether it can go 2,500 kilometers. As long as they have a missile which can actually go 500, 700,000 kilometers, it does put most of India under their radar. And that is extremely threatening, considering the perspective that Pakistan possesses nuclear weapons and has such missiles. So it is definitely a cause of concern. And Pakistan being a country which has numerous non-state actors, some of which have mushroomed with the support of the establishment of Pakistan. Some of them are complicit and are seen as extension of foreign policy establishment or defense establishment. They do cause a definite concern to not only India, but all Pakistan's neighbors and countries in the region.
All right, Captain Bansal, we'll have to leave the discussion there. Point taken. Appreciate you for joining us on the broadcast. And shifting focus then, there's been much discussion about damages to Iranian nuclear program during the recent war. But Israel's offensive also targeted Iran's ballistic missile program. In fact, the Israel Defense Forces have intensified that Iran had as many as 2,500 ballistic missiles in its arsenal before the IDF launched what it dubbed as a preemptive operation on 13th of June. Also, as per reports, IDF's Intel Directorate had also identified that Iran planned to triple the rate of its ballistic missile production. The IDF has predicted that Iran was building a new facility for mass producing ballistic missiles, which would increase its stockpile to as much as 8,800 within 2 years' time, and to 10,000 missiles sometime in 2028 as well. This is, of course, a big number, but it is lesser than what Prime Minister Netanyahu had claimed on Wednesday, in which he said that Iran could have reached 20,000 ballistic missiles if Israel had not attacked it now. Also, as per reports, the IDF had determined if Iran were to have close to 9,000 ballistic missiles, this would pose an existential threat to Israel. The report, also citing top IDF sources, says that Iran had about 400 ballistic missile launchers, but about half of those were destroyed during the 12-day war. This is being touted as a reason behind a drop in the volume of Iran's average missile salvos by the end of the war. Israel has estimated the cost of damages incurred during its 12-day war with Iran at nearly $3 billion. These funds will be needed both to repair missile-hit buildings and pay compensation to local businesses as well. Also, as per a Bloomberg report, calculations by the Israeli Finance Ministry and tax body indicate the extent to which Iran broke through Israel's defenses during nearly 2 weeks of rocket fire. Now, less than a year after UK national elections and a historic 172-seat majority for Starmer's Labour Party, a new YouGov MRP poll suggests a dramatic shift in the electoral dynamics. Nigel Farage's Reform UK party has made big inroads. It's a poll by YouGov, first national poll since the 2024 election that shows a hung parliament in UK with Reform UK emerging as the largest party and the Conservatives pushed into fourth place. The estimated seat projections are based on a model response from 11,500 voters in the country. The poll suggests that if a general election were held tomorrow, Reform UK could emerge as the largest party in Parliament with 271 seats. However, the party would still fall short of an outright majority, missing the 326-seat threshold needed to form a majority government in the country. The poll also shows a major collapse for the Labour Party, which is set to plunge from 403 seats to just 178. The Conservatives face an even worse fate. The poll suggests dropping to just 46 seats, which is a potential low point in modern party history. The Liberal Democrats are projected to rise to 81 seats, positioning them as a key parliamentary player. If the poll holds true, it would mark a dramatic surge from the 5 seats the Reform Party currently holds. Nigel Farage could be forced to govern as a minority or even seek informal alliances to pass legislation. The YouGov MRP poll suggests no realistic two-party government or coalition would reach the 326 seats required for a mathematical House of Commons majority that represents a volatile, uncertain and a rather chaotic electoral landscape in UK.
The eyes to the right.
And in other news that we are tracking, hundreds took to streets as violent clashes broke out between protesters and security forces in the West African nation of Togo. The skirmishes come amidst rising dissent by citizens over President Faure's recent amendments to the constitution that would keep him in power indefinitely. Plumes of black smoke could be seen billowing above the streets of the country's capital, Lomé, as angry protesters burnt tires and furniture used for makeshift barricades. Shops and businesses also remained shut as protesters blocked the main roads in the capital city that came under heavy police protection as angry protesters hurled projectiles at law enforcement officers. Further, citizens have called for President to step down from his resignation.
All we want is for Faure Gnassingbé to step down. We'll keep protesting even after the 3 days until he finally leaves power.
The protests have been called by a coalition of political groups called Hands Off My Constitution that called for unprecedented peaceful demonstrations and release of political prisoners as well. In fact, following the government's crackdown on protests earlier this month, Faure has ruled the West African nation since 2005, following the death of his father in May this year. He was sworn in as a president of the Council of Ministers, making him eligible to be re-elected by the parliament.